what I've longed for and yearned for so long is to remind everybody that if you get the culture right, the results for the private equity world come from that. It's not the other way around. That's what I continue to remind people. That's what I continue to talk about. And that's why I'm so listening in for the values thing, because there's lots of ways to have a successful company, but our company is successful because we get the culture right. And so that's this lifelong journey that I'm on that I feel like I'm in the minority on. If you focus on the right inputs, you get the right outputs. And for us, the right inputs is the culture.
I'm Brandon Vaidyanathan, and this is Beauty at Work, the podcast that seeks to expand our understanding of beauty, what it is, how it works, and why it matters for the work we do. This season of the podcast is sponsored by John Templeton Foundation and Templeton Religion Trust. Hey everybody, this is the second half of my conversation with Andy Youniss on integration. Please check out the first half if you haven't already. Andy is founder and former president and CEO of Rocket Software and currently serves as the company's executive chairman. In the first half of our conversation, we talked about his quest to integrate his lifelong passion for music with his work as a software entrepreneur. In this episode, we'll learn more about why Andy prioritized getting culture right at Rocket and the deeper longings that have animated his journey. Let's get started. One aspect of work that's really important to you is a thriving or healthy or even beautiful culture in your company. Could you talk a little bit about the ways in which you try to shape company culture and what that looks like?
So culture is really important. I think when the company started, we had a pretty simple culture, which was we wanted to have a culture of listening, and we wanted to have a culture that focused on solving real problems. Those are kind of the two key tenets. And, the company grew, let's call it thousands of employees and lots of customers around the world. And then, one day I was challenged by somebody who said, why would I want to work for your company? And who are you really? What do you really stand for? And so it was really challenging us to come up with, define our culture. Like who do we really want to be and differentiate ourselves from everybody else in the world? And so we thought about that long and hard. We took our senior leaders in the company and said, let's talk about our culture. And we had a bunch of words that we put up on the wall and ultimately distilled that down to 4 simple words, but, really powerful words. And we tried to live those values everywhere Rocket existed in the world. And so, those values were empathy and humanity, trust and love, those 4 words. And we started telling stories about each of those values, and we started holding each other accountable for each of those values. And we started celebrating when Rocketeers exhibited those values, and we talked about them externally to our customers and our partners, and, essentially living those things every day. And, those values were really with the company from the beginning. We just didn't talk about it that way. And to stand up in front of people and talk about empathy and humanity when they expect you to be talking about bits and bytes and programming, and to talk about trust and love, those are hard words to talk about when you are a tech CEO, but they are absolutely required words to talk about because they authentically describe who we are as a company. And when you talk about it repeatedly, when you live it repeatedly, when you hold each other accountable repeatedly, when you celebrate it repeatedly, it starts to become part of who you are. And it starts to become the connective tissue for all of us and the unifying model that we all live in. And it's how we are now recognized in the market. And it is the thing that I am absolutely most proud of, that journey from starting the company to where we are today. And, not only doubling down, but tripling down on those values every single day, that's what makes the company what it is, and that's what makes the company successful.
Right. Could you say a bit more about trust? I mean, that's one of the biggest challenges I think a lot of companies face. And when I was doing research among tech firms, about a decade ago, looking at global Fortune 500 companies, I would constantly hear this refrain: the company doesn't care about you, so why should you care about the company? So a lot of folks, management level folks, were planning their exit the day they arrived in a company, and anticipated being thrown under the bus at some point, and so this sense of apprehensive individualism was quite strong, where everyone sort of played their cards close to their chest, didn't want to be vulnerable with anyone. How do you, in such an industry where it's so competitive and so volatile, how do you create trust?
Yeah, and trust, how do you create it in multiple directions? So, you talked about it from the employee perspective. So,
Right.
employees trusting the company, and then there's the trust with customers. And there's, I think the first thing to do, and first thing we did on both directions, is to measure ourselves. So, we thought we had a good culture in the company, but then we started to measure it. Employee engagement surveys, asking our Rocketeers, are we as good as we think we are? Do we live these values? Do you feel the empathy and the humanity and the trust and the love? And if you don't, where don't you? And what can we do? And all of us have taken, let's call them employee satisfaction surveys. We really bought into the concept of employee engagement, and we bought into this idea that it's a cycle. It's a journey. We know we're not as good as we say we are every day, but let's measure it. Let's focus on those areas where we need to improve. Let's improve those areas. Let's measure that again. And so we had this cycle going. And I think the interesting thing that we did to build trust that I really haven't seen before is where our employees told us that we were falling short. What I said to the employees, okay, who wants to help improve Rocket? So we set up these employee engagement work groups. People self-selected into those work groups. I was not a part of it. The employees got together and they said, look, this is where you've fallen short. These are the improvements that we, the employees, believe you should make. We implemented every one of those recommendations, and then we measured them again. And so the employees got this feeling that we measured, we listened, we got their involvement, we recommended, we implemented the recommendations, then we measured again, and we did this year after year after year. That was, an incredible way to build trust, but I don't even call it trust building. It's an incredible way to improve your company based on what your employees say is needed. And we did the same thing with our customers. We thought we were pretty good. We thought our customers liked us, but then we, got the courage to go ask them, what do you think about us? And we learned a heck of a lot about what they thought of us. And our customer satisfaction index grew year after year because we listened to what they said and we implemented the improvements. And, today our employee engagement is, I believe one of the best in the industry, and our customer satisfaction is one of the biggest differentiators of our company.
That's amazing. Yeah. And it looks like it takes a lot of humility to be able to do that, right? To be able to put yourself on the line and hold yourself accountable to what people say.
Yeah. I mean, look at it. That's the hardest thing. I think it isn't about me. It's about us. It's about the company. If you are committed to the company, if you're committed to this organization and what it represents and the community that it's, it's the employees, it's the customers, all of that is incredibly positive input that you do something with. And I mean, and to me, that's the definition of empathy and humanity. It's, I'm really going to listen to you. I understand why you think we're falling short. Boy, I didn't see that myself. Let's go fix it.
Yeah. Do you see any lessons that you have learned from the music world or from your musical work about trust? Is there a way in which music can teach us to improve that aspect of our lives?
Well, yeah, the story I'll tell here is, I used to run this, I called it my leadership summit every year. And look, I learned along the way. I learned, how to do things better. I used to structure these annual meetings, here's the agenda, here's the content, here's when we're going to meet, here's how we're going to meet. Everybody, sat in rows and I'm up on stage. And I got the recommendation from someone one year, just put everybody in a room and trust that together they'll come up with the agenda. They'll come up with the content. They'll come up with the action items. They'll come up with the game plan. And I followed that advice and had amazingly good results from that. So my lesson there was you put good, smart people together who have a common objective, and you don't need to tell them how to do it. They can figure out how to do it. And so the parallel to music is we were performing a show. Our band was performing a show again in Las Vegas. We had musicians from all over the world. These are rocket employees, rocketeers, but from Japan, from the Netherlands, from France, from various states here in the U.S. And we were going to perform a show, but we didn't live near each other, and so we all had to practice what we needed to practice. And the first time we actually played together was at the show.
Wow.
And it was unbelievable. The performance is one of the best performances that we've ever done. And again, it was that same concept. You get good, talented, smart people. You put them on stage together. Everybody has prepared as they should have. The chemistry between us will happen in real time, and the outcome is going to be beautiful. And, those two fit so nicely together for me, those two stories, because it's really that idea that, you don't need to control it all, that you put the right people in the right place to succeed. And they typically do.
Yeah, yeah. Is there ever a challenge of people's egos getting in the way? Because sometimes you bring talented people together and they don't actually, work together for, the whole is not greater than the sum of the parts, right? How do you deal with those situations?
No, it's so true. And I think the culture thing, I come back to that, which is if you have, an organization with a certain culture, those type of people either don't want to come or, they self-select out at some point because, they want a place where it's all about egos. It's all about politics. Love is a value that's uncomfortable to them, for example. And so that's what's happened over time is because of the culture, you get a certain type of person who fits, who wants to be part of that. And so, that's how over time it's worked. Obviously, we've made mistakes along the way. We've had the wrong people in the wrong roles, and we've had bad results. But again, if culture isn't just words on a wall, if it's real, if it's what you live, again, you get it right more than you get it wrong with people because of that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, so this is a question that you might have been asked a few times around the theme of love, which relates also to the sort of value that some companies have of family, right? They say we're a family here, but families don't fire each other. And so in a company, sometimes you have to make hard decisions and let people go. How do you embody the value of love when it comes to those sorts of challenging decisions?
So, what I say to people is they have a choice of where they're going to work. Everybody's smart. Everybody's talented. There's, especially today where people can kind of live and work wherever they want. You have to work somewhere that you love what you're doing. So to me, you have to love your work. You have to love the industry that you're in. We happen to be in an industry. Our company is an industry that has really, I think, innovated more than anyone else in the area of what we would call legacy technology. So we're taking technology that's been around for many decades and we're modernizing it in a way that it fits into today's world. And so at our company, you have to love, legacy technology. You have to love taking what's worked for decades and figuring out a way to connect it into today's modern technologies. So you have to love every aspect of that. You have to love the customers that we deal with. We deal with the world's largest, governments, insurance companies, banks, manufacturing companies, and they're the best customers in the world, but they're very demanding customers. And so you have to love working in that environment. And so love at all of these levels. And then, we have to love each other. We have to come to work loving the people that we work with. And if you don't love any of those things, you shouldn't be there. Like
Right.
You've got so many other things you can be doing in your life. And so don't go somewhere. And when we have our summer interns come in, this is the talk I give them. You're here for the summer. You're interviewing us as much as we're interviewing you. Is this a place that you really would love to come and work at every day? And if not, you probably shouldn't come here. And so, yes. And so there's tough decisions along the way. And to me, going through big organizational, reorgs, for example, or having tough conversations with customers or tough conversations with employees, to me is very consistent with love. We do all that because we love the organization we're with, and we're committed to, the best outcomes for each other. And sometimes the best outcome for an employee is to not be at the company anymore. It's to go somewhere else. I've had to have that conversation with so many employees, but those employees are still my good friends on holidays, on Thanksgiving and Christmases, or when things happen in our lives. Those are the people that I'm texting with. These are people that, at one point were at the company and are no longer there because it wasn't the right fit for them. And we're still not only great friends, but, immense love for each other. So it all fits in my world. It all fits together very nicely.
Yeah. That's amazing. I want to ask about one theme that we're going to try to keep as a thread across the episodes in this season, which is about longing or yearning. And when I hear you talk, I hear a couple of things that seem to be things that you might have been longing for in your work, which is for integration, say, between your music and your software sides of who you are, and then for really deeply listening to the people you're serving and solving problems for them. Is there anything else that you would say, as you were through your journey and your professional life, that you would consider a deep source of longing or yearning? What was it that you would say you were longing for in your work?
I'll say two things. One is longing for the empathy gene. I just feel like that is what's missing in so much of the world right now, but in the context of work, like truly understanding, putting yourself in the shoes of someone else. Real empathy is, to me, the key unlock to so much in a business. I physically react when I see, or hear about employees that just lack that empathy. At that moment, they're just not understanding. They're not giving themselves to the problem and understanding what it is and why it is and what is needed and why it's needed. So that is just something that's deep inside me. So I would say that's a kind of a longing or a yearning, and it's such a positive reaction when I see it and feel it, and such a negative reaction when I don't. The other thing is this just core belief that I have that if you do culture right, so in our case, if you get empathy and humanity and trust and love right, everything else flows from that. I happen to live in a world, our company is not a public company, so we live in the private equity world. And, I've been asked multiple times by people like, how do you, on the one hand, serve private equity, and on the other hand, serve this value system that you talk about? What I've longed for and yearned for so long is to remind everybody that if you get the culture right, the results for the private equity world come from that. It's not the other way around. That's what I continue to remind people. That's what I continue to talk about. And that's why I'm so listening in for the values thing, because there's lots of ways to have a successful company, but our company is successful because we get the culture right. And so that's this lifelong journey that I'm on that I feel like I'm in the minority on. If you focus on the right inputs, you get the right outputs. And for us, the right inputs is the culture.
Great. Well, looking forward, at this point, you're not working for the company anymore. Or at least you're on the board, but what is it that you're longing for, looking forward? What would you say that looks like for you?
Yes. So 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, is when I replaced myself as CEO. So we have, new CEO and a new management team, and I am executive chairman of the company. So still involved with the company, but not running the company. So I don't have any day-to-day accountability, and I'm not operationally involved. And so looking forward, if I think about the company's been around for 34 years, what I'm looking for is the company should be around another 34 years. And how is it going to be around another 34 years? And how much of what I've talked about today, how much of that is going to continue? And how can that transition from founder CEO to someone else happen in a way that preserves the value system? And how can the new management team preserve the new value system? And how can Rocket and the Rocket community preserve the new value system, or this value system? To me, that's the legacy that I'm looking to leave behind. It's not looking back on 34 years and saying, wow, that was successful. Like, that was the first part of the journey. The second part of the journey is, can this transition to the next generation happen and stay true to our values? And that, to me, is the real definition of success.
Mm-hmm. I want to extend this theme of longing to talk about music, which music for most people, I think, is really evocative of things we deeply long for, existential longings or yearning for some kind of, whether it's sort of sense of fulfillment that one doesn't find, in their experience, or for something greater, for something beyond. I'm just curious as to whether you could speak to ways in which music for you has been evocative of these deeper longings.
Yeah, I see it kind of like a barbell. On the one end, music is very personal to me. Like, I sit down at the piano and it helps amplify the mood that I'm in. If it's a more down mood, it's helping, giving me comfort in that space. And if it's more of an up mood, it's giving me, more energy in that space. Guitar, same thing. I'll sit down at my acoustic guitar and do more strumming, if it's more of a down, moment. And it's on the electric guitar, more power if it's more of an up moment. So it's very personal. Like, and I'm sitting in my studio right now, and I spend hours out here. But this studio is also, at the other end of the spectrum, a place of celebration. You can't come to any of our parties or family get-togethers and not end up here in the music studio singing late into the night. I mean, it's a place to connect. It's a place to celebrate. It's a place of happiness. It's a place of family. Those are kind of the two ends of the spectrum for me. And those are kind of the moments and the emotions that I'm tapping into most often. Performing on stage is a different thing, but in our home-based, studios, this is what I'm typically doing. It's me and myself and my thoughts and my emotions. And then it's the big groups getting together and just absolutely just having fun.
Yeah. Would you, I don't know if you're set up for it, but would you be willing to share some music with us? I don't know if that's, it's going to be tricky to do on your...
It would be super tricky to do.
Okay.
I've kind of disconnected everything to get this working.
Right.
A while to do it. Sorry.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That's fine. Maybe I'll ask you for a clip or something. If you'd be willing
I could
to share
do that.
And we could add it to the thing. I don't have any more questions, but is there anything else on these themes of integrating your music and software, and more generally about beautiful work and what you're longing for, that we haven't touched on? Anything else you'd like to add there?
Here's what I'd say, and you feel free to edit all this out, but I think finding the beauty in what you're doing, finding the love in what you're doing, is, people don't talk about that enough. People go to business school to talk about other things, but it's so important. And then bringing your authentic self, and again, for me, it's music, so that's why we're talking about music. But bringing your authentic self to whatever it is you're doing, again, you're not hiding behind a computer screen or you're not living inside of a spreadsheet. You are a real human being, with your emotions and your skills and talents and hobbies. And so bringing all of that to, authentically to your work life, is where I think people get fulfillment and satisfaction.
Yeah.
So again, it's not taught in business schools, but it's such a key to not only business success, but life success.
Yeah, no, thank you. Is there any advice you'd have on people who might be struggling to do that, where they feel like if they were to try to bring in more of their authentic selves, that would not be accepted, or they have to navigate, promotions, or that's the feeling of insecurity? How might they navigate that better?
The advice I typically give people there is don't be afraid to try it. Like put yourself out there and try it, and you'll be surprised as what you get back. And if it's not received well, it's not you, it's them. That's the other thing is if it's not received well, you might be in the wrong company. You might be working for the wrong boss, if you will. People want to connect as people. That's the way business gets done. I know it sounds so counterintuitive in today's world, but people want to be part of communities where they understand who you are as a person. And so, if anybody who wants to try it, they should contact me. I'll coach them through it. And
That's great.
I've helped so many people with this, and it's such a, people are always surprised with how positive it's received.
Amazing. Thanks, Andy. It's been such a pleasure. Really, really quite a delight to have you on the show.
Well, it's great, talking with you. I love the work that you're doing. When you and I first connected on this, it felt so right. And so I'm glad I was able to help in a little bit today.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon.
Andy was kind enough to send along a clip of his music, so I'll leave you with this as we come to a close. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Do share it with someone who might find it of interest. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and leave us a review. See you next time.